So, okay, back to our second class on this data entry robot. You're building your first serious automation. And if you remember, we had come across a situation where, you entered data and it basically crashed the robot because it didn't come back to the screen. In fact, it got stuck because after the robot hit submit, it actually goes to the screen, but we never taught it how to like go back to that screen where the forms data entry occurs. And so the robot tries to look for the fields on this page and it doesn't find it and it crashed. That's where we stopped in the last class. And I basically stopped it because I felt like the video was getting too long. So it is also a good chance for me to teach you about the retry scope concept. And that usually happens when you have a number of steps in a process, such as the one we're working on, where you have step one, step two, step three, step four, step five, but then it takes step three and it's trying to go to step four, but something that was expected to happen did not happen, right? So in this case now, it completed the first line in our data Excel sheet, right? And it was trying to go and enter the next set of data, which is, I want to give you like a visual on that. Yeah, so I don't know if you remember, but it was able to complete this line and it's now trying to enter this line. And of course, what the robot is seeing is this screen, which is not this is not what we agreed on. So it tries a number of times and it crashes that. Look, I can't find anywhere to enter data. So this is an example of it's trying to go to the next step, but because it's seeing a different screen, it crashes. There are any number of reasons that could happen. Maybe no internet, maybe something's wrong with the application. There are a number of reasons, but we're trying to simulate an error now, and that's why we did it this way. So basically, we're going to have to teach the robot that, you know what, if you're trying to make entries and you find yourself on this screen, then correct yourself and get it back to the next screen, then try again. To do that, we're going to use something called retry scope. Now remember, this is our process. Everything is working fine. If you remember, it was able to enter the first set of data, but then it crashed while it was trying. So I'm going to do some minimization now. All of this is the process of completing the web form. I'm going to collapse it. All of this is where it assigns the values. It tells it where to look for first name. Look for first name in the first column. Look for last name in the second column. Look for phone number in the third column. Look for email address in the fourth column. That's basically what this is. I'm going to collapse this so we get a good look. And what we're saying is that for every row in this data table, right here, right? Do that for every row in this data table. That's what this command does, right? Complete the web form one line at a time, right? So now it's going to try and do this, but as we have discovered, it's not going to be able to do it for the second line because the screen ended up on this page. So we're going to introduce the concept of a retry scope here. Retry scope. That's another way to do it. Now, what is a retry scope? As the name says, retry something within this scope. Now, there are two parts of this activity. The first is, what action are you supposed to take? And the second is the condition. Now, the way this works, the simplest way to say this is that as long as this condition is true, then try to do this thing. Okay? Now, they're both empty now. I'm going to have to fill in the blanks. But that's the way, just think of it that way. As long as this condition is true, then retry this thing. If it's not true, then of course it just skips through. It doesn't do anything. So we're going to put some flesh to that. Excuse me. And we have here, what's our condition? We have to teach it what the condition is. So we need a use application browser for that. Again, I have to be careful. Use application. Okay, we've used this before, so it doesn't matter. The one you want is the UI application one. So you just drag this into the condition space. Okay. make sure it drops on the condition. Oops. Why is it not? So, I'm trying to do the condition, right? So let's use the element exists. Element exists. Make sure you type it. So there are two of them, CV element exists, and then there's UI automation, classic UI automation element exists. So you drag this one, and you put it here in the condition. Now, it doesn't have to be like this every time you're doing this, but that's the way we resolve this problem, right? So now I'm going to indicate on the screen what, oops, I'm sorry. I have to have the the actual, yeah, this is got to be open. So indicate on screen, what am I, this, if you see this element, this data entry automation, then take these actions. I haven't put the actions there, right? If you don't see it, just move on. That's what the retry scope does. So what are the actions I wanted to take? This is where I now use the use application that I was trying to use earlier. So you drag in this activity, use application browser, simply because you really can't do anything with the browser without it most of the time. But the actual activity you wanted to do is click the refresh button. So number of ways you can do that. Use the click button. Again, what you want is the UI automation click. Okay, because there are many clicks there. You drag that one into this drop activity here, and that's it. You now teach it which application do you want to automate. Indicate, of course, our browser here, and then what do you want it to click on? I wanted to click on this refresh button here. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure the green selecting the refresh. And this is one of those situations where I'm going to have to choose my anchor. I would choose this as an anchor. That is the actual web address. And it says target and anchors are okay, so I'm going to click confirm. So basically, I've taught it that, you know what, if this condition is met, that is, I should probably rename this. It's a funny name. Submission accepted screen exists, right? Because this is the message you get when you submit. Thanks for contacting us. We'll be in touch with you shortly. So I'm essentially saying with this retry scope that if this screen exists, then take these actions. But the retry scope itself, let me scoop my image over a little bit. What does it mean? It gives you the ability to do just that, but it also allows you to choose how many times you try. So for example, you might say try it 3 times or 2 times if that ever happens. And then how quickly do you want it to try? Do you want it to wait 5 seconds, 10 seconds before it tries again? You have the ability to do that. Just hit this hit this plus button, the easiest way, and choose duration. You want it to wait 30 minutes, 10 seconds. I just need like 2 seconds, really. I don't need anything fancy. But you have the ability to change that. Number of retries and the retry interval. It's all up to you. And so as not to waste time, I'm not going to repeat what we did the last video. At least not until after, right? If necessary at all. But what I have done, just so that we visualize, again, this is a chance to use some of our UiPath Studio skills. Use the outline button. You can see this is the data entry bot. Under it, it reads data, it processes data, right, which is all of this. And then inside that is a for each row, and that's where we are now. Now inside this for each row, there are 3 different activities. First of all, you assign the values, so it understands what the data means, and then you teach it, first name, put it into this place, last name, put it in that place. You do all of that within this web form. And then it's supposed to go back around and then a loop and then go to the next line once it's done it for 1 line. But if you remember, in the last video, it got stuck because it was seeing this page and it didn't know what to do. So this is your first introduction to exception handling. I basically have said that if you ever find yourself on this page, then just hit refresh, right? and then you can now go back around the loop to try the next line, right? So remember, it has read the sheet. It only does that once. Now it's processing the data, but it got stuck here because it was trying to go back around the loop to enter the second line here, and it couldn't find the web page. I hope you get that. It ended up seeing this instead of the place where you fill the form. So now I have put in a sequence that basically tells it that I'm opening the retry scope again. If you find yourself on this screen, on this screen where submission is accepted, when you get here, oops, like that. How do I get around that now? Let me just quickly restore them pages. Not sure it's a good idea not to. All right, so I'm just going to close it. I apologize for that. So I even lost my train of thought. What I was trying to say is that if you find yourself on this screen, right, then I want you to click the refresh button. That should get us back to where we were before. And then you can continue trying to fill out the form, Mr. Bot. So I'm going to close all this now that we've done our configuration. Make sure that our data entry sheet is closed. Then save my work and then hit play. Before I do that, I go to debug screen. I don't want, all of this because I had it execution trail, highlighting elements and all that. I don't really want to see all that, but I don't mind seeing the logs right now to use that to show you a couple of things. So after I've done that, I'm still on debug screen now. I just press play and I expect that. I don't expect any problems, but we'll watch together. So the idea being that it's not going to crash after filling out one row, right? So here we go. First row, submit. Oh, it's like super fast. Submit. So you can see it's doing its work very well, but it's not happening smoothly without our, our skills in handling exceptions. And, this is an example of how you use automations in the real world. This may be somebody's job, or they're just moving data from one place to another, and all they do is type, and they have like thousands of entries. This is the sort of thing that robots will just do for you, because once you've explained to them that, okay, these are the problems you can have, they have no problem taking on copious amounts of effort. I was just looking at an automation in my office yesterday. They literally have to do one very complicated process 1,400 times a day. It's a very huge company, right? Billions of dollars, 50 countries. So they do have a lot of transactions. But this is not like a simple process like this I'm talking about. Oh, by the way, this is finished. It's a process that has many, many steps. Open this application, search for this number. If this happens, do that, like 10 steps. There are different scenarios. But you have to do that literally 1,400 times every day. But it's the same thing, even though it's complicated. So we teach robots that kind of thing, and they take a lot of load off the workforce. So here we are. It took the robot 1 minute, 2 seconds to do that. I don't know, you've got to be like some kind of Speedy Gonzales to even type that much data in that quickly. But, like I said, if there were 10,000 rows here, it would just do it, no sweat. And so if you have succeeded in doing this, you have built your first automation and you have a good sense of a real world problem and how to, do basic exception handling. I could go further on this, but I think I want you to feel good about what you've learned about UiPath Studio at this point by putting you through this exercise. So I expect that, you comment below this video if you are successful, and we are now ready to move on to other more exciting things now that you feel more empowered about all of this. All right. See you in the next class. Thank you.